Senator Suswam, Gabriel T. Suswam.
Mr. President, my name is Dr. Gabriel Suswam, Benue Northeast. Mr. President, I want to first commend the President for bringing a very, very ambitious budget that is intended to address the infrastructure deficit that we've talked about here several times in these chambers. Mr. President, I'd like to join the leader of the House, of the Senate, because he was frank and straight to the point that our economy has contracted. The leader. The economy has contracted to a level that this Senate needs to critically address some very germane and pertinent issues. Mr. President, having said that, I want to look at the technical side of the budget. And I will start from where the minority whip mentioned the issue of revenues that are supposed to accrue and the sources. Mr. President, along with the appropriation submitted by the President yesterday, is a financial bill. And that financial bill has 5 thematic areas. And I'm worried about one. The one that I'm worried about, if you look at the speech, is on paragraph E, which talks about revenues. And then why I'm worried, Mr. President, is that VAT that has been moved from 5% to 7.5% is one of the sources that we intend to raise revenue to finance critical areas of education and the health sector. Mr. President, in the same budget that we proposed 2.93 GDP growth, we have also taken these policies that will further contract the economy. Because if we now say that VAT will be moved from 5.7%, Mr. President, the exemption which the minority whip have talked about are very, very, very small. Because most of the aggregate economic activities within the country are small business enterprises. Most of these small business enterprises will be unable, Mr. President, to address this issue of 7.5% VAT. To that extent, we might not necessarily achieve the 2.93% GDP growth that is projected by Mr. President in this budget. That worries me. 7.5% for me is on the high side, and that it has exempted mostly food items. There are other small-scale enterprises that attract economic activities more than this. How many of these people that actually contribute to the GDP of the country? And so if we are targeting to raise money from VAT, Mr. President, I want to say that it's a double-edged sword. If we don't take time, it will drive down and drive out a lot of businesses. To that extent, the economy will contract, and so we will not be able to achieve the projection as put here by Mr. President. Having said that, Mr. President, again, we look at the deficit. The deficit worries me, I've mentioned that before, because the deficit of 2019 was 1.9 trillion. The deficit of this year is 2.4 trillion, Mr. President. With that, there is a correspondent borrowing increase. And as we continue now, they are now saying that the percentage to GDP is just 1.5%. We just have a threshold of 3%, Mr. President. If we go ahead, because it's gradually moving up, from 2007, if we look at the deficit, it has been growing up. Our deficit, as it grows, borrowing comes. As borrowing comes, the money for services of debt is also increasing. Now it is 2.4 trillion just to service debt. And Mr. President alluded to the fact that they've been very committed to debt service. Now, if we continue to increase borrowing, this budget has clearly stated that they will be borrowing of 1.7 trillion. That means that by next year, the money for debt service, Mr. President, is going to be higher than what we have now. This is clearly not sustainable. I think that, as the leader said, we need to absolutely do something in these chambers by way of legislation. Mr. President, you did very well when we passed the PSA bill that to be amended, because that will attract more money and to an extent reduce borrowing that we have. Mr. President, I also want to look at the parameters, especially as it relates to the 57 and then the 309 and then the 2.18 million barrels of oil per day. Mr. President, in the budget, we were told that after stakeholders met, they arrived at 2.1 million barrels of oil per day. Last year, it was 2.3 million barrels. The average was 1.8. So I think that for us to monitor what the NNPC is doing, it is better that they are very specific, because this is a source, Mr. President, of making sure that nobody knows what is going on. If we know that the average production per day is 1.9, then you made a budget projection of 2.18. Ab initio, there's a problem with that. And that problem, because what they want to do, because we are selling oil at probably 67, now is 57 from 60, we'll have about $9. That $9 multiplied by what they're producing, we will never be able to track how this money is going. But if we are specific on the oil production, we will be able to track what is going on. The president will be sure of what he's getting. Now, Mr. President, finally, I want to say that the allocations to the sectoral allocation.
You have to round up now.
As presented by the president is good, but there are issues. Education and health sector. The money in the health sector and the education sector is patchy compared to some of the other areas. If we must address infrastructure from a holistic point of view, I think that outside of roads and power, education and health should have been also enhanced so that we be able to take it holistically as we move along. Otherwise, Mr. President, I want to say that with the cycle of the budget back to January to December, I think the performance of this budget will be better, and to some extent, Mr. President will achieve to a large extent what he set up to achieve, because this year is 58. We should be targeting to achieve 80%. And Mr. President, you will also give support to your committees in the Senate for absolute monitoring, because that is the only way we will be able to track and make sure that there's